Campbell.
Aye.
Campbell Murray from
Aye.
the Tune. This is Doric
my
TV.
a real toon loon, really. I was born in Aberdeen and brought up in Aberdeen, although I did spend most of my holidays because my folks were both farming stock on farms, so that's where I started my love of the Doric, I think. I had a great uncle who had a farm at West Hill, Myrtle, which is nae far from Timber, and I went there quite often to stay in the holidays, and then I often went down to Forden, which of course is Lewis Gibbon territory, really. But I used to listen to the farm servants and get an idea of what they were saying. But it was much later, really, after I retired, I took up the Doric seriously. It was in the early 1990s. And since then, I've been an avid supporter of the Doric and always looking for new material. Also, I don't use it much now, the new stuff.
Well, we use the Doric when we can. We use it when we can. I think through the passing of time, words and phrases seems to got lost, but the enthusiasm still keeps going, Campbell. This is a first for Doric TV to zoom to the tune. For us, country folk, Aberdeen has always been, we always refer to Aberdeen as the tune. Campbell, what is your long-standing association with the tune, Aberdeen?
Well, as I said, I've spent my whole life here, you know. I was brought up in the Rosemount area, if you know it, in Wallfield Place. Myself and my two brothers, one younger, one older, were brought up in 2 rooms in a tenement in Wallfield Place. But we were lucky because we had Victoria Park and Westburn Park just very near to us, and we played most of the time there.
Can you disclose to us your young age, Campbell?
Oh, well,
Come on.
Hardly young. I'm 79, going on 80.
That is absolutely marvellous. So you've had a long-standing association with not only Aberdeen, but also our Doric culture. Yes. What is it about our Doric culture, Campbell, that inspires you to write and to collect Doric poetry?
Well, I suppose it's the words themselves and also the sounds. I think when I was working on the farms, it was great to listen to the farm servants, as it were. And of course, there are so many words in the Doric that have no equivalent in English, you know, fusionless and drich and fair verfochen and so on. There's no equivalent in English in these words. So that's the thing.
I think you're going to launch into one of your Doric poems, Campbell. Come on.
This is a little poem by Frances Mcdonald. Now, she was born at Lochiel Cushney, and in fact schooled at Cairn Cooley and then at Dowie School, went to work in Alford after that, got married and went to the Geary, and that's when she started, in fact, to write Doric poetry for the local Geary Association and also for the Buchan Heritage Society. And this is a poem called Dedicated Doric. I think it probably reflects the state of the Doric maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago. Doric is our dialect, agreed, all mother tongue, encouraged by our grannies, right faith and we were young. Driven in till steady, who could we e'er forget? Elke word was spoken in, near their fort na faith. Culture is inherited, it is God's gift to man, and abdy should be proud of it, preserve it if you can. That's what we were telt, it's sicker in our mind, even till this day, and that was long, long syne. Darna did that squeal, so for fear we got the tag. Dominies didn't talk out, they used to lose a rag. Oh, nanny is a va, keep your country sticks at home. Rules and regulations, sick a downright shame. It's interesting nowadays to see a turn around. Children are encouraged, isn't that a boon? Things have certainly changed quite a bit in the last 20 years, I think, with regard to that.
Yes, and Campbell, we were just wondering, what is it about our Doric culture that has inspired you to write poetry?
Oh, well, I suppose My writing poetry started really, I was a member of a walking group, and of course we went all over the Cairngorms and whatnot, but quite often we had parties at the Inver Hotel up near Braemar, and I tended to write poems which were really a catalogue of what had happened on the walk. But these were all rather long poems, I may say, and they were particularly appropriate for the individuals who were doing the walking, because I took the mickey out of them, I think. So...
that is a lot about Doric poetry. It does. It tends to highlight our Doric humour, doesn't it?
That's right,
Campbell?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, I believe that you have got a large and extensive collection of Doric poems. Now, where did that stem from, Campbell?
Well, when I retired, of course, I said I'd interested in Doric before then, but when I retired, I started to go around the second-hand bookshops, in fact, picking up books of Doric poetry and also going to book fairs. And it's amazing, I've been to a lot of the local and not so local second-hand bookshops. I mean, I quite often, I still go up to what used to be the Orr bookshop in Huntly, now run by the local Heritage Society, but there used to be bookshops in Aberlour and Craigellachie, and there's still some near Fochabers, which is, well, I can't remember the name of it at the moment, but it's, so I go there every year because I have timeshare up at Coylon Bridge, so I do my wander up there. And then, of course, the book fairs were quite good. You could pick up very old books, but by and large, the Doric poetry in the 30s, 40s, 50s were produced in very little volumes and obviously privately paid for and booked. And the result is that they would have maybe 10, 20, 30 poems in them. And some of them very good, some of them not so good. So I gathered all these, and I think at the moment I have something like 350 books and another 100 anthologies. And in addition to that, I think over the years when I was on the circuit, I have a list of about 1,100 poems I've used in the past, speaking to the various groups, which was everything from probist clubs, ladies' guilds, conservative ladies' associations, and quite often, of course, I've been out of town to Inverurie and to Aboyne, and took part in the Aboyne Festival a few years ago, Aboyne and Deeside Festival, and up at Ballater as well. So I've been around the house, as it were, with these Doric poetry. But as I say, the collection is quite big. It's kind of static. I'm hoping, I've told my family they should pass it on to the Elphinstone Institute when I go, because they're not interested, I'm sorry to say.
You'll be surprised, you'll be surprised, Campbell, who the vast amount of people who are interested in the Doric culture, the Doric language. And, you know, we are so impressed that we have got a HUD of a man from the Toon, Aberdeen, that has got one of the largest Doric poetry collections that we know of. Would that be right, Campbell?
I think it probably is. I mean, the Elphinstone Institute has had a fair collection now, of course. But they, of course, have helped the Doric, I think, over the last few years. But, of course, that's not their own. They're interested in ethnology and music and the Portsoy boaties and flute bands and various other things. So the language is really just part of their remit. But, of course, there's been a growth too in heritage societies, you know, and of course most of them tend to run Doric poetry competitions for the kids as well as the adults. And I know the Buchan Heritage Society, which I get their magazine every year. It started about 1984, I think. And I have all the magazines bar two from that up to last year's one. Usually they were printed in the magazine the year after the actual festival, the previous year. But a lot of good stuff, and a lot of it children's stuff. But of course there's more children's books in Doric now than there used to be. You know, Fit Like Your Majesty and that sort of thing. And the kids' poetry is really quite good, very short poems, but very good.
Which is, it's good, Campbell, that there is a revival of the Doric. There are not just the, you know, the language, but also the the past and present culture. That's obviously what we're doing with Doric Future, is we were, you know, looking at the present Doric culture, you know, and to hopefully inspire folk into the future. Hence our website, Doric Future. What more do you think that we could do, Campbell, to inspire youngsters with the Doric language?
Well, several other things that have happened. Of course, there's the reading bus, if you've heard of the reading bus. It used to go around the schools and so on. And in fact, they've produced a couple of volumes which have a fair number of poems written by the children themselves. So that's the one thing. And of course, schools, Keith Academy and Bath Academy have been trying to introduce the Doric to their curriculum. And I think at the moment, I understand there is some approaches being made to the education authorities in Edinburgh to get them examinable, in other words, which would help to help things, because the more people that take it up, the better, I think. And they are doing better from that point of view.
In amongst your extensive range collection of Doric poems, who in fact would you say is one of your favourite, all-time favourite Doric poems? Apart from yourself.
That's a bit difficult. I think if you're looking at country poems, of course, like many others, I was brought up to Charles Murray. No relation, I may say, because my family, I've looked up the family history, and although I've got the same kind of nose as Charles Murray, there's no relation that I can trace. But you see, in addition to that, of course, there's Margaret Grant from Strathbogie. She's a great, she died a year or two ago. But then, of course, you've got the fishing communities in Peter Buchan. And even in Torry and Aberdeen, Joyce Everell wrote several books of poetry which are really very, very good. And of course, there are some religious poems which are really terribly good as well. The ones that I like are the late, he's dead now, David Oxon, who was a minister in Perth latterly. But there's Maggie Jane Minty from Strichen. Now, she wrote a lot of good stuff, not all religious, but she had a little book of poetry called Through the, what's it called? Anyway, it's a little book, which is only 20 poems in it, but they're all to do with bereavement. And I've used a couple of them at funerals in the past. Through the Valley, that's the name. Really very good. But you see, these things are out of print now, and they're unlikely to go back into print unless somebody's willing to finance them.
Yeah. Indeed, that is the good thing, Campbell, about your private collection of Doric poems and poetry in book forms, and that is actually tremendous, Campbell, because you know, these books might, as you say, might not come back into print, but at least you have held a copy in a collection. Right, would you like to recite a short poem from one of your favourite past Doric poets or poetesses, Campbell?
The ones I've chosen are tune ones, you see, and I think this one's called Vandalism. And it's written by Alexander Davidson, who I think was actually, he was brought up in Aberdeen, I think, went to Mile End School, and then he went to Gordon's College, and then he worked for a law firm for a while, and then he started up a little library in the Hardgate somewhere, but it failed. And then he joined the library set up in the council, and latterly, I think, was the head librarian at the old Aberdeen library. And he was born actually at the end of the 19th century, but most of his poetry was written about the 1960s. And this is one called Vandalism. And it describes the changes that happened in Aberdeen round about that time. Vandalism. Oh, fit of Aberdeen to my native tune, for I'm fairly lost now, when I stravega roon and look for the streets, for I played a wee loon. Oh, fit of Aberdeen with my native tune. For Strawberry Bank, far's the old Wallace Tower, that's come over the Denver, a blow and a bean, and damn it, they flitted o'er Dartney Ha, rugged doon the New Market, and mucked up the green. Far's the Northern Club with its snowed county knobs and its harmless neighbour YMCA. And fit's that they had bigged our Union Brig to blend the wide vista our Tory Bray. They tell me some things are for better awa, the Yestro for een and for by the ship raw, but for they gone to plunk down in their place, a corner spunk boxes when they soul heart in their face. And Raglays a waff, we baited the snoot village walk, for rock neve dealt money a cloot, for we kick it round the corner and roar Darry hot, while the course he'd a been bare his teeth like a rat. Och, I could run on, but fits the gweed, van caul glass and concrete to save it we need. You'll hear in why I've nae doot, but good Lord, you fair made a sauce out over Bonaccord.
That is absolutely brilliant, Campbell. Absolutely brilliant.
Yes.
We couldn't begin to ask you to how many poems that you could recite. How many would you say that you've got in your actual head, Campbell?
Well, of course, I was on the circuit for a while, and I never really made a virtue of remembering them by heart, because I always had them in writing, and that's what I tend to do now. You know, my memory is not as good as it was at my age. However, I enjoy them all, and I enjoy the songs too, you see. Ian Middleton's stuff, you know, the songs are great. And some of them, it's amazing going around the audiences speaking to them. You always picked up one or two other bits a piece. Our folk would ask you for copies of the poems, you see, which I would tend to do, photocopy, but didn't tell anybody about that. But so that's how it goes.
Campbell, I think that is a cue for another poem, Campbell.
Okay. Well, this one's called Primary Teachers, and this, in fact, was written by another Aberdonian who went to Skene Square School, and then he went to Gordon's College, then the university, taught in Stromness in Orkney for a while, and then moved to Anstruther, retired back to Aberdeen to late. And he was brought up, obviously, roughly the same time as me. And this is a little poem about teachers at primary schools, and it's called Primary Teachers. My primary teachers for the 30s manna be middle-aged skeletons manu. Ah, women they were, the early snaw in their hair. They put up with impetigo, flecky heads and bairns that couldn't pay their books. Their feathers were on the brew. And yet they did learn us, yon old wives. We chanted tables like bairns' rhymes to keep off the inspectors of the heedy. And when we spelled our classroom sklatey music for our soap-scored slates. Their scuds were murmur, the Loch Gelly sound. Don't turn on the waterworks they gurned. They spoke English. They kent nothing of new methods, but in their fashion they were as chook as gowlighters, ramrods without breasts. They did their TC proud. I salute you now, Miss Smith, Miss Tuch, Miss McIver, steam havers, somebody man he loved. That's it.
You know, you've just got that passion, haven't you, Campbell, to recite it, you know, to have it in here, but to regurgitate it and recite it back again. That is absolutely beautiful, Campbell. You know, Campbell, we're just thinking, you know, we're in the 21st century now. Gosh, Doric, where has it gone through the centuries, and where do you think we're headed in the future?
Well, I think there is, and I think it is in the up now, I think, I would say. And let's hope it continues, and particularly if they get it into schools as an examinable subject, that'll attract a lot more people, certainly from the country schools. I'm not so sure about the town schools, but I mean, Sheena Blackhall, of course, has been trying to get into the schools. She has been in the schools for ages, trying to stimulate interest in Doric, and I'm sure it'll be an up. Unfortunately, I can't say that about the Lowland Scotch. You know, it's a kind of almost dead now, and I'm a bit sorry that not as much money has been put into the Doric as put into Gaelic. My grandmother was a Gaelic speaker, you see, but you know, a lot of money, and I can't see any great reward for all the money they put in.
That's one thing that Doric Future have been advocating. That's why we've got this Doric TV channel, because we thought you know, there isn't that big pot of money anywhere to help us promote
No.
us who we are, you know, in Aberdeenshire and our Doric culture. So you can't fit Campbell, we've got to do it ourselves. You know, and that's why we formulated Doric TV. There's lots of other things going on as well. Campbell, can we just ask you, as a long-standing member, a community member of the tune Aberdeen, how have you seen Aberdeen changing over the decades?
Oh, well, it's changed. There's a lot changed, of course, in Aberdeen, particularly with the oil industry, which, of course, is now in the wane. And, of course, they brought some extra words into the language from the Americans, you see. And I think there'll still be change, because unless Doric changes, it'll die out too, you see. And there's no doubt that younger folk coming up will be using new words. I mean, the old Scots, of course, was a mixture of Scandinavian. I mean, Kirk and Kist were Scandinavian names, and the sort of trade between Aberdeen and the Baltic states was what changed a lot of our things and a lot of our words that we use. And I mean, even things like cranny, which is really a Dutch word, you know. But and I think it'll go on changing. As long as it does that, it'll survive. Oh, some of the other stuff will remain. There's no doubt about that, because it's got a ring about it, the Doric has it, and especially if it's sung, I may say. Some of it's really very good.
Do you sing? Campbell, do you sing as well? Do you sing?
Well, having said that, I had not too bad a voice at one point. I didn't suppose it was time, but I had a little one thing rung out, looked out if you want me to hear it.
Come on, Campbell, come on.
Okay, well, I need to get my paper for that, so I want to remember it. And it's called Buchan.
Buchan? Well, Campbell, that couldn't get better than that. Where do we live? Doric TV is in the heart of...
If you ever come across the sea to Buchan, or maybe at the closing of the day, you can sit and see the moon rise over Bodom, or watch the sun go down on Achy Brae. You can stroll along the bonny banks o' Yugi. The scenery is wonderful, they say. You can take the coast road round by Burnhaven and watch the happy convicts at their play. Just to hear again the ripple o' the Eithon, to Buchan I must surely wander back, to cast some peats or maybe row a barra in a sunny peat must just this side o' Kiak. Oh, this Buchan is a land of rugged beauty, of hills and rivers, glens and barren rock. Oh, to see again the majesty and splendour, oh, Mormont and the hill of Bendigo, the rocky shores of Aberdour and Pennon are something you'll remember all your life. Fragrant sense of bracken, bog and myrtle, in that Weelkin beauty spot the moss so bright. Oh, you'll feel the scent of roses at Rosehearty, the smell of newborn silage at New Deer. You can roam around the pubs of Newport Sligo and hae a glass of tasty Buchan beer. If you ever take a donner down the Brochway, there is something that will gar ye stop and yell. Or if the wind is in the wrong direction, just hold your nose for mächtig what a smell. Oh, they say the streets are paved with gold in London, but in that city fair I would not stay. Take me back again to Maud, for I'll be happy, where the streets are paved with Sharn on Wednesday. Oh, they say that heaven's in the winds of Brockley. It may be God ordained it, who can tell? But if you climb the hill at Auchmacleedy, you will find Buchan has the other space as well. And should you ever take your leave of Buchan, you can take a souvenir for Buchan Loch that will keep alive the beauty and the fragrance if you buy a barrel load at Turramagh. And if there's going to be a life hereafter, and I'm fairly certain sure of that, I will ask my God to let me mark my heaven at Tyree or the Broch or at the God.
Campbell, you are a star. You have just recited and sang that beautiful song of Buchan. Well, obviously, Doric TV is in the heart of Buchan land. But you know,
Yeah.
whether you're in Buchan or whether you're in the Tune or Aberdeen, it's all relevant.
Yeah.
It's all relevant.
I may say I don't know who actually wrote that song, but currently I should know, but I don't. But it was put in the Buchan Heritage magazine at one point, and I used it to a university audience. And some woman said she thought that her grandfather had written it, but she did give me the name, but I've forgotten it.
But you know, Campbell, the thing about incorporating all these name places into a song, that all these places that we've grown up with, you know,
Yeah.
And they're incorporated in the song forever. That's what it's all about.
I know.
That's what it's all about, Campbell.
We've gone over your 15 minutes.
Well, we could go over go over 50 minutes. Campbell, with yourself, we will zoom again. We will zoom to the tune again with Campbell Murray. Campbell, keep your collection going. You've got the biggest private collection of Doric poems and words that we know of.
Well, it's nice to speak to you anyway.
Cheery bye for Doric TV, Campbell.
Okay. Well, thank you.